How can we create ongoing mentorship through peer-to-peer collaboration, supporting aspiring leaders, because too often good teachers move into principal roles or leadership roles, and they're very different roles. So how do we mentor aspiring leaders to take that next step?
Hi there, and welcome to the Pondering Dan podcast, where we talk all things teaching, education, pedagogy, and technology. I'm your host, Danny Summerall, and if you're new to the show, make sure you leave a review and share with your peers. Connect with me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Pondering Dan, as well as at ponderingdan.com. Today on the Pondering Dan podcast, I have Dr. Matthew X. Joseph, who is currently the Director of Curriculum, Instruction and Assessment in Leicester Public Schools in Massachusetts in the United States. He's been a school and district leader in many capacities in public education over his 25 years in the field. Experiences in roles such as Director of Digital Learning and Innovation, elementary school principal, classroom teacher, and district professional development specialist have provided Matt incredible insights on how to best support teaching and learning. This experience has led to nationally publishing articles and opportunities to speak at multiple state and national events in the USA. His master's degree is in special education and his educational doctorate in educational leadership from Boston College. Matthew is the author of Power of Us, Creating Collaborative Schools, and most recently with Suzy Brooks, he co-authored the book Modern Mentor, Reimagining Teacher Mentorship, which is now available on Amazon.com. Here in Australia, as well as in the States, of course. You can follow Matthew on Twitter at Matthew X Joseph. Welcome, Matthew.
Well, thanks for having me. It's pretty excited to meet in person, in a sense, on podcasts.
Yeah,
it's a chance to meet. We've collaborated on a few different Twitter chats and even had you in the book.
That's right, yes, which I was very honoured. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, chapter 5 for the readers out there. So.
Pick it up.
Obviously, I'd love to talk a little bit about the book because it is a really good read, and especially here in Australia, reading the book, and there's a few things that are slightly different, but it's also interesting to see how things are done in different parts of the world as well. So, but can you just talk a little bit about how the book Modern Mentor came about?
Sure. So you mentioned in the opening read that I finished my doctoral degree at Boston College, and I studied job satisfaction for teachers and really dug into what drives and how that intrinsic motivation not only drives teachers to the profession, but keeps them in that. And I did that research when I was in as a building principal because I wanted to support the teachers that were there. And looking at the findings, the three things that jumped out that teachers really looked for was collaborative opportunities to collaborate. They also wanted to know who their administrator was and to see that person in the building and in the classroom, visibility. And the third thing was to have a strong mentor that helped the teachers not only come into the district, but stay in the teaching position because they had that support and the longevity to have a peer support them through the years. So from there, as you said, also in the beginning, the first book was called Power of Us, around collaboration. So I'm just really pulling apart the findings from my research in supporting teachers and leaders. And this one around mentoring, I really wanted to look at how leaders, both in the school and in district, could support teachers in their school, not just in the first year, because often when you think of mentoring programs in public schools here in America, it's just in your first and maybe your second year. And you and I were talking before we came online and said in Australia, it's not even a paid or stipend position. So the book came about looking at how can we enhance and grow mentorship from teachers' first year until a leader retires or wherever you are in that capacity. So it really touches on both the first year of teaching and mentors to support that person. And then how can we create ongoing mentorship through peer-to-peer collaboration, supporting aspiring leaders, because too often good teachers move into principal roles or leadership roles, and they're very different roles. So how do we mentor aspiring leaders to take that next step in that profession?
Yeah.
So all of that and talking with people and talking to colleagues, it was a need, and one that I thought I had both the background experience being a principal and a district leader. At that point, I moved to central office, and also having the background of the research I did at Boston College to pull the book together.
Yeah, it is a really important part of teaching, is to have that mentor. And I remember my first day of teaching thinking, oh, I don't know if this is going to be right. It's a lot of people. It's sink or swim, really, isn't it? And without that mentor there to guide you, you can have a really terrible time. And
And as a building principal, I saw, and not just my own building being a newer principal and seeing some teachers that were struggling, but hearing about it in other buildings of how we supporting teachers after their first year. And that's where I started to talk with Suzy Brooks, the co-author, who was very close to mentoring programs in her school, and started to have a conversation. And when we were talking, we said, let's just do this together, and look at both from a leadership lens, which I had, and she had a teacher lens, and really talk about some stories from the field and then strategies to support the readers.
yeah, and I think I've read some research somewhere that says that 5 years is about as long as a lot of new teachers last these days in the profession before they decide to actually move on somewhere else. So I guess mentorship will actually help if it's done right.
Yeah, the
Hopefully retain
middle,
those teachers.
absolutely, because the middle third of the book is really looking at veteran teachers and
Yeah,
looking at some that are close to burnout because of the high demands and the high expectations and the accountability. How are teachers staying motivated? So really looking at some strategies for veteran teachers to continue to not only learn from their peers, but to learn from some of the newer teachers and the new strategies, to keep them really keep their fire burning as teachers as well.
yeah, yeah. So what do you think is the single biggest responsibility of a mentor?
When I think about, there's so many, but I would start at the foundation. Just like we want to build teachers' foundation, mentors' foundation starts with listening. Too often, mentors are assigned because they're either the classroom next door or they're the most veteran educator in the building. And too often, when that happens, the teachers try to tell the mentee or the newer teacher what to do. So I would say the biggest thing to start with is being a listener. Learn about the person that you're mentoring, hear how their experience, hear their story, and then talk about their goals and where they would like to go in the profession. Because once you learn that as a mentor, you can then fill those gaps in with your experience. Don't lead with your experience and tell them how to succeed like you did. Learn what they need, learn what their aspirations are, and then use your experience or know the resources to get to support them. And that's what mentoring is about. It's not making a mini me, it's making the best mentee that they could be.
And I guess it's all those relationship building things as well.
Absolutely. Building the foundational relationship and building the trust, because mentoring is long term. It is not just drop in, see how things are going, get them over the hump, and then move on. Mentoring is about building that long lasting relationships. And you had said around 5 years. Well, we want that relationship to last for their whole career.
Yeah.
And not that you're tied to one person, that to have so to if there's something you want to talk about, or learning. And as a mentor, you have experience and you have skills in matching the needs of the new teacher or the mentee with that mentor will create that foundation, create that bond and trust. And that starts with listening. And that was the first thing that came to my mind was having that listening first, and then build the rest of the skills moving forward.
There's a lot of parallels with mentoring and teaching, really. A good
Yeah.
teacher can develop good relationships with his students, and learning will happen as a result of the relationships between teacher and student. So it would just be the same for mentor mentee.
Right, because I talk to teachers and say students learn for someone, not just from someone.
Yeah.
And that's about building relationships. And that's the same with mentoring. A mentor is going to really be inspired by someone, not just because you have the seniority.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think are the dangers to new teachers that either don't have a mentor, or with a mentor that is probably not doing it for the right reasons? They might be that just in it because they're the veteran teacher and they're just telling them the boring bits, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, there can be, if there can be some pitfalls, and I'll look at two different. One, in the absence of good mentorship, a teacher, I think, would feel overwhelmed. You had said, oh, just get thrown in the deep end and see how they do metaphor. And that could happen if a new teacher starts, or a teacher changing professions from a different field. Or I was talking about new leaders that don't have a mentor. It's a lowly position, and it can be overwhelming because entering the teaching field, you have colleagues, you're in college, you're around a lot of adults. If you go into teaching, you then go into a classroom, shut the door, and you're by yourself for the most part. And the absence of a positive mentor becomes possibly lonely. It feels isolated and like you're working in a silo. And what happens from there is teachers could get burnt out and leave, as you mentioned. The other pitfalls is going back to one of the first things you talked about the skills is teacher that's not listening or not a great match, that the new teacher could learn some bad habits. If you're matched up with a mentor who is maybe someone who's in it for the stipend, as you said, or in it for leadership experience, and they're just telling the new person what to do, you could be creating bad habits in the new teacher. And that's also just as dangerous to happen.
Yeah. And I think once those bad habits develop, it's very hard to retrain somebody.
Right, because what'll happen is say, well, I learned it from my mentor, or this is how my mentor did it. Why wasn't it what you wanted? And that's the responsibility of the leader to know the mentors as well. And chapter 2 in the book talks about creating a mentor pool, not just getting the most experienced teacher. That may be, but having a pool of teachers who have great skills and who be great mentors, so that you can assign and match the right mentors up, so that there isn't that feeling of being overwhelmed or creating bad habits in teachers.
Yeah. I'm thinking back now to my first year of teaching, which wasn't really that long ago because I did come into teaching from another career. And I was really lucky. I had a really great mentor and he taught me a lot. But I think one of the biggest things that stuck out to me as for his mentorship was that he would never volunteer the feedback to me at the end of the day. He would ask me to go and sit down and reflect first, and then we'd have a conversation. How important is that feedback and that reflection for both mentors and mentees?
I think it's incredibly important, because what we're trying to do is actually create independence for the teachers in the field. And if you either teach a lesson or have a meeting and the mentor's there and you run right to how'd it go, what do you think? This goes back to the mentor just telling you how it went or telling you what you should have done, versus really having that metacognition time to think. Because the biggest, as we move forward, skills that you want in teachers is independence, self-confidence, and belief in themselves. And in doing that, it takes some time to reflect, have some missteps, think about what went well. And then you're not just responding to something quickly. You're taking time, processing it, and learning. And then when that happens, the feedback is based in a combination of the reflection in or leader, whoever's giving that feedback, talking in their recommendations as well, to say, I saw that too. And it gives them affirmation. It builds that confidence. And then for the mentor to give that feedback, it allows the teacher to know, okay, they listened, they saw, and we both are on the same page. Or I didn't see that. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. So we talked before we started recording a bit about some differences between the States and Australia. And I mentioned that we don't have a paid mentoring program. We do have mentors for newer teachers and for leaders. And but for example, the college that I work at, we do have mentors, but I feel like maybe it's in a different capacity. But we also have a coaching program for all the other teachers as well. And I know you talk a little bit about this in the book. So what I guess my question to you is, so what is the biggest difference between a mentor and a coach? And is one better than the other?
I wouldn't say one is better than the other. They each have a specific need and role in the profession. Typically, when you're talking about coaching, instructional coaching or leadership coaching or any form of educational coaching, you're looking to either teach a teacher or leader a singular new skill, or you're looking to close a deficit that a teacher might have. So we'll look at the positive side. If you're looking to give a new skill, and I know we do a lot of chats on STEM, primary STEM chats, will say it's a new design theory. The STEM coach would go in, share the theory, co-plan, teach together. the teacher's got it, and then the coach moves on.
Yeah.
If there's a deficit in instruction, the coach goes in and said, well, here's a deficit, or whatever wording is used. Here's a needs improvement area. I'm going to help you overcome it. And the coach works individually with that teacher. And once the teacher obtains the skill and overcomes the needs improvement area, the coach moves on. So that's a very critical position to have. A mentor is someone who comes in and builds the foundation of a teacher and builds them up. So it starts with the foundational piece of the introduction to the school, introduction to the curriculum, really getting them into the profession. And once they have their footing, they're there along the way to support them through the whole year and work with either, again, new teachers, peer mentoring, aspiring leaders, or leaders to say, here's something you should try. Let's try it out. And we continue to build. It's almost like scaffold. That you're building this person up so that they eventually will be able to be on their own in the sense of their abilities, but yet not lose that connection, so that there's always that brainstorming, because collaboration in our field is, going back to one of the things I said, one of the biggest needs that teachers have for job satisfaction. So the mentor is along and with you throughout the process. It's a more long-term relationship.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to what you said before about your veteran teachers and developing bad habits and things like that. And I'm wondering whether, say, for example, you have a new teacher come to your school. Maybe they've been teaching for 5 or 6 years, but they have developed a lot of those bad habits because they haven't had that good mentor. Would you say that it's still acceptable to give them a new mentor, or would that be more of around a coaching program for those teachers?
I think it could be a combination. I would recommend any time a teacher comes into your district, or a principal for that matter, or a leader, or that no matter how many years they've been in the field, provide them a mentor. Because one of the strengths of a school district is the culture, a building culture. So even if you've been teaching 10 years and you come into a new district and new school, you're entering someone else's culture. And the reason you were hired was probably for your skills and a good teacher, but yet you don't know how the culture operates. So what a mentor will help that veteran teacher at that point do is say, here are some traditions, here's some of our cultures, here are some things that are unwritten rules in our school that I want to make you aware of and work through. And this is how we do collaborative team time. Here's when our events are. And even if a veteran teacher who may be exemplary comes into a new culture, they still need to be acclimated. Again, I don't know a lot about the educational system, but even in Australia, but thinking of, like, I know rugby is a big sport, that a rugby player from one league comes to your team or a new league, there's a lot of unwritten rules. They may be a very good player, but you want to know how the locker room works. You want to know where the training room is. You want to know how the system operates. And it's for a teacher to make sure that they feel welcomed and they're part of your team.
Yeah. And you're right. Culture is a massive one. You can come with those skills, but if you can't work the culture out, life will be very difficult for you at a new job, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I could probably talk about this all day. But time isn't on our side because I have to go and teach very shortly. So I might finish up there, but I'm so grateful that you agreed to be part of the podcast today, Matt. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So again, you can find Matt on Twitter at Matthew X Joseph. And I was checking out your YouTube channel last night. There's some really good short little videos in there, which are awesome. So go check out his YouTube channel. And your website's techinnovation.live. And there's a lot of resources and blog posts.
Yeah.
And like that.
Yeah. So you can check that out and you can connect with me. My email is on there. It's drmatthewxjoseph@gmail.com, because I'm in the field. I'm a practitioner. I'm a district leader. I don't want to just put this book out and say good luck. I want to walk in my purpose. And if any of your listeners have questions, suggestions, want to connect, shoot me a note, DM me. I love doing some of the chats, the Aussie Ed, the primary STEM chat, the TLP Down Under, because one of the things that we didn't get into, but it's important for me and for the listeners to know, that even though I wrote this book on mentoring, I'm on those chats and different things learning myself, because for us to be the most effective mentors and teachers or leaders, we have to continue to evolve and grow too. So if anyone has questions, resources, things that you're looking for, please reach out. I'm happy to help and
Yeah.
support.
Yeah, excellent. But you are doing amazing things in education, and I think we're really lucky to have you. And I almost feel like you're an honorary Australian now, because we see you popping up so much in our Australian chats. And maybe we all appreciate our sleep too much, which might be why we're not all joining the American ones so much. But,
Well, I'll get you on a couple.
yeah, they are a bit more furious than ours, I've noticed. I have done a couple, and
Absolutely.
it's a
There's
lot
many,
harder
many.
a lot harder to keep up on those ones. So
Yes.
make sure, if you want to check out the book Modern Mentor by both Matt and Suzy Brooks, you can find that on Amazon.com, and you can probably find it on a lot of other websites as well.
Mm-hmm.
I only quote that one because that's where I found it in Australia.
Great.
But reach out to Matt if you've got any questions. If you've got any questions for me, you can reach out. If you want to be part of the podcast, you can drop me a line at dan@ponderingdan.com. So once again, to help this podcast grow, please like it, subscribe to it, rate it, and share it. And before we go, Matthew, do you have any parting words?
No, I just appreciate, and I think our kind of connection here is a testament to staying connected and being proactive, because we've never met. We're in two different countries, but formed a bond on a chat and learned from each other. And now I'm on your podcast, and you are quoted in my book. So I think that goes, with people listening, that it can happen. You just have to be proactive with your drive and your spirit, and things aren't going to just fall into your lap. You have to make your own luck.
That's right. Excellent. And actually, speaking of all the meeting on Twitter and everything, I think Maz Ellery as well. You've met her through Twitter. We recorded an episode on, the benefits of EduTwitter, and this is one of them happening right now. We wouldn't know each other if it wasn't for those interactions. So You're absolutely right. Get out there and make yourself known, I think. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right, Matt. Well, thanks so much again. And
all right. Well, good luck in your class today.
Yeah, thank you. They're a good class. I'm lucky.
Good. Excellent. All right. Well, have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.